Hi, this is Peter Murphy here from howtotalkwithconfidence.com. Today I'm going to talk about conversation courage, or in other words, how to eliminate conversation fear and to have all the courage that you want so that you can express yourself more freely and have more fun when you're talking to people. To begin with, I want to talk about the recipe for conversation fear. That is, the way we look at things that makes the fear more of a problem. And I'm going to talk about that so that you can identify if you're already doing that, and then afterwards we look at a more positive way of approaching it. The first element that creates conversation fear is demanding perfection. If you're demanding perfection of every conversation and every interaction you have, you'll make yourself very tense and you'll make it much more difficult to speak freely. Secondly, if you have an attitude that mistakes are not allowed, you're boxing yourself into a corner. You're going to limit your creativity and you're going to make any spontaneity and any effort to be original and expressive virtually impossible. Finally, if you make unfair comparisons between yourself and other people, again, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So these three attitudes are actually quite negative and they do not help you when it comes to moving ahead and improving your communication skills. Now let's take a look at the basics of conversation courage. The first one is to have a daily relaxation habit. For a lot of people, myself included, we like to start the day with, let's say, 15 or 20 minutes of meditation. For someone else it might be yoga. For someone else it might be listening to relaxing music or taking some exercise. Whatever it is, I strongly encourage you first thing in the morning to have a ritual. Again, let's say for 15 or 20 minutes, something you can do that centers you, that allows you to relax and focus for the day ahead. Second key element is to work on your capability. What am I talking about? I'm talking about your actual capability to hold a good conversation. Now, if you go to my blog, you'll find a lot of tips for starting conversations, keeping them going, conversation topics, and so on. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the nitty-gritty of holding a conversation. That's capability. If you have lots of courage and lots of confidence, but you don't have the capability, you'll find you'll come unstuck. And finally, you do need confidence. You do need to have that feeling of, I can do it, when you're talking to people. So these are the three fundamental elements of conversation courage. So what can we do specifically then to have more courage and to kill the conversation fear? Well, you're going to need a pen and paper. And the first thing to do is to identify the specific fears that block you when you're talking to people. Just write them down. Get that piece of paper out and just start writing down one line at a time all the things that bother you, the little things that get in the way that make you fearful. We need to identify the fear first of all before we can examine it and break it down. What we do then is we question and destroy with logic each of the fears that we have on the list. Let's say I have a fear that I'm going to look silly, and I write that down. So I write down, look silly. And then I have another fear, say the wrong thing. And I write that down on the next line. I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing. Then what we do is we question the fear. So I might say, okay, I'm afraid of looking silly. How do I question that? I'll say, is that likely to happen? What if I look silly? Let's say I look silly. Is that the end of the world? And then I start to look at it rationally, with logic, to see, is it really that important? And by doing so, all of the smaller fears on that list of yours, you'll realize they're really not that big a deal. Maybe 90% of them don't matter that much, and already you'll feel that you're not as bothered as you thought you were. The next point then is to improve your level of capability. Like I mentioned a moment ago, put more time into looking at the fundamentals of conversation. You could improve your body language, you could improve your knowledge of things to talk about so that you have a wider range of conversation topics. You can improve starting, keeping it going, and ending the conversation. And yes, I mentioned ending the conversation. A lot of us get stuck because we don't know what to do when it gets to the end. And that could bring about some fear as well. I'm going to get stuck. What am I going to do? So improving capability gives you more confidence and literally greater ability so that you can stay in charge and direct the conversation. Finally, to kill conversation fear, you need to stretch your comfort zones, but only by a degree, only by small steps. Let's say at a party, for example, you would normally talk to, let's say, 2 strangers. The next time you go to a party, maybe talk to 2 more. So aim to talk to 4 people. Don't go to a party and decide, okay, I'm going to talk to every one of the 200 people in the room. That's too much of a stretch. So to kill the fear, you want to gradually stretch your comfort zone so that you gradually become more comfortable and you gradually have more courage and confidence. So how can we develop conversation courage? Well, one great way is to go to new locations. Go to places that you don't normally go to in a typical week. You might go to a new cafe. Let's say you need to go to the supermarket. You might go to a different one. And what this does is it gets you used to dealing with new situations and talking to new people. You'll find yourself in a situation where there's a new person in front of you. That's practice. You get to meet someone new and you get to try out your new skills. And a key point here, let's say you hesitate, let's say you think, oh no, I'm not sure what to do. Don't regard that as failure. Treat it as a signal. That's a signal to stretch, to get slightly better and to go just a little bit beyond your previous limits.